Thank you so much, Mr. Ploss. Thank you, Mr. Thering, Professor Göring, dear members of the German Bundestag and the City Assembly of Hamburg. I must salute Vice President Andrei Trepol, the representatives of the Church, the chambers, the associations, the diplomatic corps, and dear ladies and gentlemen. Long before our European Union was born, the citizens of Hamburg were living with European values, breathing the air of democracy, so to speak, shaping the future of their city, and taking responsibility for the common good. We see that today in the example of Mr Reimers, who has always taken action on behalf of the weakest and neediest among us. We see it in the case of Angela Bulut. It was impressive how she described the table they have in their part of the city. And of course we saw it in the case of Ms Lahnstein-Kandel and her commitment to the defense of Jewish life and mutual understanding between religions. I must thank you all three from the depth of my heart. You are an amazing inspiration to us all. We stand at the beginning of a crucial year. It is the greatest election year in history. More than half of humanity, over 4 billion people, will be called to the ballot boxes this year. Not just in Europe, in India, Indonesia, South Africa, there will be elections. As we know, there will be elections in the USA as well, and in many other countries, big and small, people will be deciding on their futures. Of course, it's been some years now that we have been concerned over trends that put our democratic societies under pressure. We experience now the reality that we have to do more than turn up at the ballot box every 4 or 5 years. The times are such that on a day-to-day basis we must all stand up for our democracy and values. To stress this point, I'd like to mention 3 dates. The 24th of February 2022, the 7th of October 2023, and the 25th of November 2023. On the 24th of February 2022, Putin's tanks rolled over the Ukrainian border. On the 7th of October, Hamas terrorists attacked Israeli villages and carried out the worst mass murder of Jews since the Shoah. Men, women and children, babies were slaughtered merely because they were Jewish. And we have seen open hatred of Jews break out on our streets. Some days ago, we learnt from the press that on the 25th of November, far-right politicians and activists met in a villa in Potsdam. There, they discussed plans for the expulsion of millions from Germany and Europe. The symbolism of this was a wake-up call, and hundreds of thousands demonstrated against these ideas in the streets last weekend. Thank goodness. Clearly, something has changed imperceptibly, insidiously in the last few years. Something that perhaps in retrospect may, a few years from now, appear as a deep cultural and political change. We, who are in the midst of it, have not perhaps yet quite realized what is happening. All the three events that I mentioned, though, involved the distressing breaking of taboos. Few of us thought it possible, but these events occurred. For decades, we could be confident in Europe that the borders of sovereign states and international law actually mattered. We were also confident that we would never again see deadly violence on this scale directed at Jewish people. And most of us also thought it impossible that here we would see serious plans to deny minorities, I speak of people with German passports, would be denied the right to remain en masse, only because they have a different cultural or religious background. What on earth has gone wrong? What can we do about it? Naturally, this question is addressed first and foremost to politicians. They must come out with a clear, unequivocal, and strong message. Putin is an aggressor and responsible for war crimes. His strategic objective was to take Kiev within a few days and then take Europe hostage due to its dependency on Russian gas. Well, he came up against the courage and resistance of the Ukrainians, but also the unity of Europe and its partners. And he must continue to fail if we are to live safely in Europe and if Ukraine is to have a future in Europe as a free country. Hamas is a terrorist organization. We must stand up for the protection of Jewish life on our streets and the right of Israel to exist, independently of the basic obligation to defend civilian lives. There is no contradiction there. What we have learned from the far-right machinations in the villa in Potsdam is intolerable. The attitudes behind those machinations is cynical and inhumane. Earlier this week, the leader of the AfD parliamentary group called for Germany to leave the EU, to leave a Europe that has brought us 70 years of peace, freedom and prosperity. She wants to go back to a past that never really existed. How unaware of history and how blind to the future can one be? Debates on the right way forward are an integral part of democracy. And to be sure, Europe is far from perfect. When you have 27 states, 450 million people coming together, there will be things which don't work and which we have to work on further. But that should not obscure our view of what Europe is achieving. Our European Union is one of the most prosperous and socially progressive regions of the world. No party has more trade agreements with other economic blocs, and no member state profits more from the internal market than Germany. We must decisively counter those who count on anger, hatred, and the erosion of our sense of community. We must do this at national level, at European level, and international level. Because Putin and the dividers in our societies have one thing in common. Democracy stands in their way. And they contribute nothing at all, to tackling the real challenges of our age. Digitalization, climate change, competitiveness, demographics, migration, just to mention a few. On the contrary, Putin purposely exploits soft spots to weaken our democracies. You will still remember, I'm sure, that last winter he systematically depleted our gas supplies and then limited energy product exports country by country to Europe. Prices, of course, rose tenfold. We had a serious energy crisis. Those prices are back now to their level before the war. And Putin's state-sponsored trolling factories and his cyber attacks on democratic elections and institutions like the Bundestag are notorious, because he knows that it fosters fear among us. It is our task, on the one hand, to counter those who peddle fear with facts, and on the other side, of course, people's voices must be heard. The pace of digitalization or global warming or globalization is challenging to people. It's all going so very fast. But that is why we have to show every day that our social market economy can help people to manage the pressure of change, and to show people that democracy has the best answers. We can do that. Think only of the pandemic. Torchlit processions, barriers, tinfoil hats, they help nothing. They help no one when it comes to viruses. We've got a continent of 450 people successfully through a very difficult time. And I think, when you look back, that we can be a little proud. Proud that we managed, that member states, big and small, progressed together. That everyone obtained vaccines in one go. It's hard to imagine that our internal market remained intact, and that we were the only major vaccine producers who remained open for the rest of the world. The US shut down, India shut down. They were producers, but they had to shut down for the outside world. We did not. And that is something that will never be forgotten. It was a wonderful achievement. It is another big step forward that at European level we will now, after 10 long years of negotiation, finally have better rules on migration and asylum. I would like to be crystal clear. We have always fulfilled our international commitments and obligations in the past, and we are doing so today. And we will also do so in future. But it is for us Europeans to decide who comes here and under what conditions. It is not for the traffickers and smugglers, and certainly not for autocratic rulers to make those decisions. Equally, as we all know, and you know it better than most, we need more legal and safe ways into Europe. The principle must be that those with skills and the prospect of a job should not have to entrust their savings, let alone their lives, to criminals. I know that many of you are desperate for skilled labour. It would mean you could take on more orders, you could expand your business. So what has succeeded in the US and Canada via legal migration must contribute to growth and prosperity here too. I would like to cite another example of European success. We have overcome an energy crisis. We have weaned ourselves from Russian oil, coal and pipeline gas. For the first time last year, we produced more electricity from wind and sun than from gas. These renewable energy sources are not just good for the climate, they're also good for our independence. They're homegrown. And in the bigger picture too, the trend is moving away from the old dirty technologies to cleaner processes and products. Look at what the US is doing. They are powerfully investing in cleaner technologies via their Inflation Reduction Act. $340 billion. China is massively subsidizing electric vehicles. The Gulf states, which have endless supplies of oil and gas, are now concentrating on clean hydrogen. Why? Well, they tell me that they dominate energy markets today, and they want to do that tomorrow, in future as well. And they know that clean hydrogen will be dominant in future, so they're investing in it. Europe leads in the field, leads the field in terms of clean hydrogen patents. We now draw more investment in clean hydrogen than the US and China put together. We are leaders in offshore wind power, and Europe leads on smart power networks, which are absolutely necessary to adapt to clean energy. This is where the wind blows. Here is the natural home of energy-intensive industry, and here we will soon have the infrastructure to import hydrogen from all over the world. And I can assure you, at the European level, we are doing everything possible to make sure that Europe, and therefore Hamburg as well, remains #1 on this young growth market. It shows that democracy delivers. Ladies and gentlemen, I need hardly tell the citizens of Hamburg that our world is driven by economic interests, innovation and functioning markets. That is why competitiveness is so important to our businesses. But it's not everything. I am more convinced than ever that democracy itself is our greatest home advantage. Politicians must lead, they must clearly point the way forward. But it is only with our economy's investment power, the innovation of our medium-sized businesses, that we will curb global warming. It is only with clear rules that we can develop artificial intelligence so that it serves people and not the other way around. That means that politicians must create the framework, but it will always be the people, the citizens, who give democracy life. It will be their input that forms the backbone of our democracy. It was a joy to see how many people here in Hamburg went out to demonstrate last weekend for our democratic values. That so many businesses are also standing up for those values. Citizens are clearly aware of their rights, but also aware of their responsibility for the common good. That was wonderful and impressive, and I'm grateful for it. When, in June, citizens in 27 member states vote in European elections, it will be a moment of renewal for the democratic foundations of our Union. A moment to consider what really matters to us. One can, of course, do business everywhere. But where people want to live and bring up their children, well, that is where the streets are safe. That is where there are prospects for people, where everyone has access to education and culture, regardless of income. It's where lasting peace reigns. It is where everyone has access to health care, where people can move freely, study and work, where there are no longer borders, where if you build something up, it remains yours, where the law rules and not despotism. That is what the Citizens' Prize stands for, and that is what the European Union stands for. And it is worth standing up for those values with everything we've got. Let's make Europe strong together. Thank you so much.